What is up, A to Z Sports? We are live here on a Friday morning. Sam Phelan alongside Jack Gentry. And yeah, Shy City Sam today, Jack. I am back in Chicago, Illinois. So kind of a different setup for me, but I'm doing the show live because the show must go on and the topics must be discussed. Today, we've got a good conversation about Derrick Henry and a move and a report that has come out about what the Tennessee Titans did with Derrick Henry at the trade deadline last year, what Rand Carthon tried to do, what the organization tried to do, and where they're at now because of it. So it's going to be what I think is a very fun and nuanced debate here. So I'm excited for the show very much, Jack. We'll get into some NFL draft history and what the Titans could have had in an ideal world and wrap it up with Ain't That Good News. So a lot to discuss, but tell the fine folks what to do, sir.
Absolutely. Hey, happy Friday to everybody. We finally made it to Friday. I see a lot of y'all filing in right now. Some chat all-stars checking in early on this morning, getting in here early. Lou Man, hello, ladies. IR Hoshi, quick to the trigger in the chat today. When you guys file in here, I do encourage you all to like the show. Dropping a thumbs up, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, helps this show grow. It helps us reach new audience members. And that's great. We want to build, we want to grow before the regular season gets here so we can dominate and we can have the best chat we've ever had. In order to do that, we got to like the show and share the show if you're watching on Facebook. Remember that sharing is caring. If you share the show into at least one of your Titans Facebook groups, that helps us do the same, grow, reach new people, help take a bigger temperature of the Titans fan base. We want to hear from as many Titans fans as we can in the chat throughout the day. So do that by sharing the show on YouTube. Next, if you're watching, sharing the show on Facebook. Next, if you're watching on YouTube, tap that bell icon at the top of your screen and turn your notifications on. You don't want to miss a thing. A to Z Sports is the best in the world at training camp coverage. That starts next week. We're all excited for it. Don't miss an update. Sam's going to have boots on the ground. Austin's going to have boots on the ground. It's going to be tons of video, tons of stuff to react to. So turn those notifications on before it's too late. You don't want to miss training camp updates. Finally, if you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link around to your Titans text groups. Text it to a friend who's getting ready for work. Text it to a friend who's already at work and is struggling. Maybe they're close to the end of their shift. They need a little energy boost. We're here for that. They need to hear a little bit about the Titans. We got that as well. It's going to be a fun show today on this Friday, Sam. I'm excited to get it going. So with all that said, let's get the show on the road.
All right. Yeah. King VZ says lock in and like the show. So lock in and like the show. Jack, I love what you did there, boosting up A to Z's training camp coverage. Allow me to chime in on that as well before we really get it going officially, because I genuinely believe what you said. I believe that what we've got going here at A to Z Sports is unlike training camp coverage really around the NFL. I'm not sure I've ever seen a company or a media outlet provide the type of coverage consistently throughout training camp with videos, with articles, with player interviews, with everything you need to be in the know. If you want to be in the know about the Titans as training camp unfolds, you have to dial in to A to Z Sports. That's what we've got going on. So good on you, Jack, for shedding some light on that, and wanted to throw my hat in the ring as well. But here we are. Let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Sam Phelan. He is Jack Gentry, and this is A to Z Sports, Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live on weekday mornings at 8 Central on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show are tweeted out segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. And you can also check out TikTok, Instagram, Threads for more of that engaging Titans content that you need during training camp. Got to thank our sponsors this morning because they make it happen for all of us while they help out all of you. They are Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Farm Bureau Health Plans, better rates, better coverage, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. The Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care at boneandjointtn.org is where you can go to schedule that appointment as well. And then Holiday World Splash and Safari. Catch the last wind of summer with the best savings online at holidayworld.com. So, Jack, right off the bat here, as Eric says, I'm guessing Sam is in Chicago. Yeah, that's why we've got all of our White Sox stuff behind us here. We don't have the A to Z Sports background, but we are in Chicago embracing the Shy City Sam mentality. And we have a Derrick Henry topic to discuss. And I think people saw the headline and they were like, hey, what does that mean? And King came in and said, is this show topic really necessary? Unless it affects current players or this upcoming season, how does this one matter? But I would argue that what we're talking about today does affect the current team, the future of the team, and the current roster. So that is why it is worth talking about. And it all stems back to a report that came out by The Athletic, which in some ways confirmed. And I'm going to go ahead and try and find that report and throw it up here, Jack. But The Athletic comes out with a report confirming what we already thought and knew about the trade deadline last year, saying Ran Carthon had a deal in place for Derrick Henry to be a Baltimore Raven at last year's trade deadline. And Ran was down, but not everybody within the organization was down. And so it ended up getting blocked, and he played out the rest of the season in Tennessee. So while I get ready to throw that up here, your quick reaction to seeing that news.
Yeah, if Rand's down, if the general manager is down and the trade does not go through, that tells me that the most important person in this franchise, Amy Adams Strunk, was probably not down to move on from Derrick Henry in the middle of the season. Look, there's a lot of sentimental value when you're talking about Derrick Henry, the best player to ever wear the two-tone blue. And holding on to him in what was really a lost season last year is certainly a hot button issue, and it's certainly going to have an effect on the franchise one way or another down the road because, look, if the Titans make that move, maybe they add a player that they needed. Who knows what that player could blossom into? We're going to hit on all of these angles today in today's show, but it's certainly an interesting topic. And when we start talking about some of these names that the Titans could have grabbed had they made that deal, I think that the guys that aren't bought in on this topic yet in the chat are going to come around. So I'm excited to see everyone kind of throw their hat in the ring and see what they've got today in the chat.
Yeah, here's the report here saying DaCosta agreed to the framework of a trade with Tennessee general manager Ran Carthon. It was a 4th-round pick that could have become a 3rd had Henry reached certain production levels. Again, Ran Carthon agreed to this trade, but there were others in the Titans hierarchy apparently that were not on board with the deal, so Henry played out the season in Nashville. And I do want to kind of say, what you kind of said, Jack. Others in the Titans hierarchy, we're talking ownership here because nobody's making that decision over your general manager and future president, in Ran Carthon because he immediately gets a promotion after the season, unless it is ownership. So this was an ownership move. This was something that I heard a lot of at the trade deadline, that Ran was getting ready to ship Derrick Henry off to Baltimore. Our Buck Rising was all over this with his sort of reporting, and the information that he was getting in was that, hey, Derrick's going to be a Baltimore Raven, until Derrick wasn't going to be a Baltimore Raven anymore. You look up, you say, what happened? And ultimately, it's Amy Adams Strunk and Titans ownership getting involved. There's no way that this is referring to anybody else, is there?
Not in my opinion. It's one of those things where if it gets shut down, but your GM's on board, I just don't know who else would have jumped in and said, you know what, let's not do this. Let's hold off on moving our guy. So, yeah, it screams Amy Adams Strunk to me. And after, John Robinson kind of went over her head and dealt A.J. Brown at the draft, like maybe there was a scar there that Amy Adams said, you know what, I don't know if I want to move on from another star player in the middle of the season. Let's just see. Let's get to the end of the season. Let's see if we can work things out, because Derrick Henry's not a guy that anybody wants to let go of. Obviously, you're talking about an aging running back, and the way that Derrick Henry plays, he's got a lot of mileage on those tires. But just with the level of stardom that Derrick Henry has brought and the attention that Derrick Henry's brought to the Titans, you can kind of see it from Amy Adams Strunk's perspective. But at the same time, last year you weren't competing for a playoff spot. You weren't contending for a Super Bowl. So it would have been the right time to move on and grab some value, like they did with Kevin Byard.
It really is like the ultimate, and this is the difference in opinion between the perspective of a general manager to an owner. Because as a general manager, you're thinking long-term, you're thinking football operations, you're thinking roster, and draft picks are a GM's best friend. So I can see where Ran Carthon is like, hey, Derrick, love you. You've been great, but this isn't it's not in our best interest to keep you for the rest of the year when I need to think about long-term of my franchise. For Amy Adams Strunk, right, while you do want to think about the long-term benefits of a draft pick and what that draft pick could turn or blossom into, there's an ownership benefit to keeping Derrick Henry around as well. And one of those things is ticket sales. Having people come and pay to see Derrick Henry and be slightly more competitive helps ownership a lot. And I think, just optics within the city, people were very unhappy with the Titans last year, where they were as an organization, where they were headed. People were not very happy when Kevin Byard got traded, even if we're able to look back on it in hindsight and realize that it was probably the right move for the Titans to do at the time. And I think as an owner, and as an owner who cares about making money, who cares about selling tickets, who cares about every number 22 jersey that she sees in the stands at her stadium every week, there is a benefit to keeping your franchise guy, not having the entire city of Nashville upset at you because you just traded away King Henry.
Right. And Caps jumps in here with this comment. He says, this also did Henry no favors. Henry could have a ring right now if that trade went through. Here's the thing with that, Caps.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
But who cares if Derrick Henry wins a ring? Derrick Henry, when he's not on the Titans, sure, but that shouldn't affect the Titans. Like, Derrick Henry's mood should not affect the Titans' business decisions. If Derrick Henry wins a ring in Baltimore, fine, whatever. That's great for Derrick Henry. But I'm not pulling for that to happen because, number one, that means the Titans didn't win a Super Bowl that season. And number two, that means the Ravens won one, who are one of the Titans' biggest rivals ever since, the early 2000s. So I could care less whether or not Derrick Henry finds success in Baltimore. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I'm hoping that he doesn't. Like, he's already going to score his, 100th touchdown as a Raven. He's going to run for his 10,000th yard as a Raven. But Derrick Henry's not a Titan anymore. So I'm not pulling for him to succeed over there.
All right. Audible. I'm audible and at the line of scrimmage. We have a question that I'm very curious to get to with the chat that I think is going to spark a lot of debate and talk here. But Jack, that is making me audible. And we have to go ahead and ask that question to our Titans fan audience because that surprises me. Are you rooting for Derrick Henry to have a ton of success with the Baltimore Ravens? Are you rooting for Derrick Henry to have success with the Baltimore Ravens? That is the question that I want to get to because Jack just said he personally is not. And I'm curious to see where the chat falls. So go ahead. Answer in the chat. While you guys do that, I'm going to tell you about our friends at the Bone and Joint Institute. The Bone and Joint Institute is the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to know who to trust, and you don't want to fumble on your recovery. You won't. With the Bone and Joint Institute, go ahead and visit their state-of-the-art rehab facility out in Franklin for a one-stop shop that can help you with any of your needs. Schedule an appointment at boneandjointtn.org, and they will help you out. Great doctors, the best care, and, hey, clinic, rehab, imaging, surgery, testing, all in one spot. It's boneandjointtn.org.
BetMGM.com. If you're looking to get some skin in the game, do it with BetMGM. Whether you have a sports book or you're interested in joining one, download BetMGM when you do so and use our bonus code A to Z Sports. When you use that promo code upon sign up, you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. A lot of stuff going on right now. Golf, tennis, baseball, WNBA, Summer League basketball. We're in the semifinals over there. The Memphis Grizzlies gunning for another Summer League title with Scottie Pippen and the boys. It's a fun time to be a sports fan, even though football's on its way back. Hey, look, you want to throw some money on some college football futures, NFL futures? They've got that as well. So download BetMGM. Use our bonus code A to Z Sports and get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses.
All right, Jack, you created a topic here without even realizing you were doing it with what you were saying. Are you rooting for Derrick Henry to have success with the Baltimore Ravens? Willie says, yes, he is. Bork is calling you Jack Spiteful Gentry. Jack,
no,
the
not
spiteful Gentry.
I've just moved on.
Dre says, F no. Andre says, no. F the Ravens for life. Jay says, I don't root for a Henry apart from the Titans. Tony says, yes, I am. We got a hell no from Steven. We got a no from Deshaun. No from Eric. Darren says, go get that ring, King. So you'd assume Darren is here. Hell no. No, I'm not. John says, yes, he deserves it. Should not be selfish. Vanessa says, only if we're out of the playoffs. Randy says, tighten up, which is not an answer. Chef Rand says, no, F the Blackbirds.
That's right.
I am for sure. No, I hate the Ravens. Nope, I guess not. only if the Titans aren't having success, kind of like McNair with the Ratbirds. Wow, all the nicknames towards the Ravens today. Darius says, I hate the Ravens, but Henry gave us so much to Nashville, so I'm saying yes. Derek says, Bork says, yes, he's a great guy. No from Linwood, no from Maven, yes from Apollo. So Chad is split on this, and this is why I was very interested in seeing where they were going to go, because, Jack, your answers surprised me. And I know that I don't speak from the same perspective because I am not a Titans fan. I was not raised a Titans fan. I do not, have the same understanding or appreciation for that Titans-Ravens rivalry like many Titans fans do. I don't feel it. I don't care. I see the Ravens. I'm like, hey, cool uniforms, and Lamar's pretty fun to watch. I have zero connection to the Ravens whatsoever. But yes, I'm rooting for Derrick Henry, and I think Titans fans should be too. The only scenario, this is me as a sports fan, the only scenario in which I don't root for a former player of my team is if it ends ugly. If it ends and they start talking smack, they try to force their way out with a trade, if they abandon the team, if they end it ugly, that's when I'm out. And I say, all right, man, hey, kick rocks, right? Go have fun. Derrick Henry was the face of Tennessee Titans football for almost a decade. Derrick Henry made the Titans nationally relevant. And I can speak to that from the perspective of somebody that didn't live in Nashville, but watched the NFL, that never cared about watching the Tennessee Titans, maybe could name 2 or 3 Tennessee Titans players all time. And then King Henry showed up and became this swagger, this quiet swagger, this big linebacker-looking running back that can go for 2,000 yards, that can run over you in a minute. He made it cool to be a Tennessee Titan, and at the same time, made it cool to be a Tennessee Titans fan. So, yes, you root for the Titans before you root for Derrick Henry and the Ravens. This is not the NBA. We're not talking about saying my favorite player went to the Lakers. I'm a Lakers fan right now. No, absolutely not. But Derrick Henry has paid his dues to the city of Nashville, the Tennessee Titans organization. I believe that new stadium that's coming in, that's going to last for decades and decades, is the house that Derrick built in a lot of ways. And we need to show some appreciation for that as people in Nashville, as people who watched his career play out, as people who are fans of this organization. And if Derrick Henry's in the playoffs, you sure as hell better be rooting him to get the ring. He gave you so much. The least you can do is root for him to get his.
Man, I rooted for Derrick Henry when he's in Nashville. Nobody appreciates what Derrick Henry did here more than I do. I mean, Derrick Henry, like you said, he brought the Titans to relevancy. Derrick Henry is the best player this franchise has ever seen. I love and appreciate everything that he did here. But it would be different if he went to Seattle. If he went to Seattle, sure, go Derrick Henry, go get one if the Titans can't have one. But he went to the Ravens. Sam, if Brian Urlacher, Matt Forte, one of your favorite Bears players of all time, went to the Packers, you'd feel differently. So it's easy to say this until it happens to you. And if you're cheering for your rival in the postseason, that's the little brother syndrome. Man, you don't want them to do any better than you're doing. Look, if Derrick Henry has success, fine. Individual success, I'll be okay with.
I throw a flag on that because, number one, the difference between Bears-Packers and Titans-Ravens is the division thing. The Packers are the Bears' #1 rival. And
Titans-Ravens used to be in the AFC.
I mean, I could hear you if you were like, Derrick Henry's going to the Colts, and you're not going to root for Derrick Henry to have a bunch of success against you on a division rival team. The Ravens are not in your division. The Ravens' success in the AFC, you don't even play them this year. Like, it doesn't really impact you whether or not Derrick Henry and the Ravens are good or bad unless you see them in the playoffs. And then you're, of course, going to root for the Titans over the Ravens. But like that, to me, there's a level to that. And I would argue that it's more little brother syndrome to care so much about the fact that your rival could win that you are like, hey, the real answer to me is to be like, yeah, go ahead, Ravens, get your Super Bowl. I don't care. Go Derrick Henry. We'll take that's fine to me. The fact that you're so bothered by the idea of like the Raven logo on the helmet that it makes you turn.
Well, Sam, do you not remember this is the same franchise that came in and stomped all over the Titans logo? This is the same franchise that took Steve McNair and Derek Mason. There's a lot of history here. And while they're not in the same division now, they were in the early 2000s. They sent the Titans home in the playoffs during some of the Titans' best years in franchise history. This rivalry runs deeper than just not being in the same division anymore. So, look, I'll pull, like Tighten Up Ohio says, I think this is the right answer. Derrick Henry, individual success, have all you can. But look, if Derrick Henry runs for 1,500 yards and the Ravens go 3-14, that's the best case scenario. But I will not be cheering for the Ravens in the playoffs so Derrick Henry can get a Super Bowl ring. There are plenty of great Titans that have gone elsewhere. Look, have all the fun you want. You're not a Titan anymore. I'm not going to pull for you in the playoffs. Like, it'll be a good story if he ends up winning one, but that means that the Ravens won a Super Bowl, which is not worth it at the end of the day for me as a Titans fan. And I think a lot of the Titans fans feel the same way. Samari Rolle, another guy that left the Titans to go to the Ravens. So, like, there are a lot of these cases, and like I said earlier, if he goes to the NFC, if he goes to a team that the Titans don't have history with, that's a totally different story. Go have your success, man.
But
Look,
Jack, the question is not, are you rooting for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl? The question is, are you rooting for Derrick Henry to have success?
they're kind of correlated, though. You have to understand.
I mean,
those two things are correlated.
Sure. Derrick Henry's success probably makes the Ravens very competitive and very good. I think you should be rooting for Derrick Henry's success as an individual. If you get to the playoffs and you're not crazy about rooting for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl, I can understand that. And I can understand that, like you said, let's use that Bears-Packers analogy, right? And I have all this fuel and hatred in my heart for the Green Bay Packers and their fan base, just like Titans fans do for the Ravens. And I'm willing to tell you that I don't know the full history of it to fully get it. And because I'm not a Titans fan, I don't feel it like many of you do. But to me, if there was a Bear that I love, let's take my guy, right? Let's take Jay Cutler.
I love that.
Jay Cutler goes to the Green Bay Packers, and I love Jay Cutler, and I appreciated what he did for Chicago while he was here. And he's playing over there, and they're in the Super Bowl. There's this feeling of I'm not rooting for Green Bay, but man, am I going to be happy for Jay if he really wins it. I'm going to have a smile on my face for Jay because I believe that, what somebody does for your organization, and again, how it ends. I don't think Titans fans owe A.J. Brown anything as far as rooting interest is concerned. Root against A.J. Brown for all I care. Like, yeah, he was a great Titan. Who cares? It ended ugly. But if this person was as big of an icon for your franchise as Derrick Henry was, I think it kind of exceeds the precedent for who you're supposed to root for at the end of the day. Because let's be honest, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you and the Titans' future if the Ravens win the Super Bowl or not. Worry about the Titans and, worry about the people who have done something for the organization.
Caps, another comment here. Caps is on fire today. Jack, what if Derrick Henry went to the Packers and it was Packers-Ravens? Would you not prefer Henry and the Packers to win the Super Bowl? I absolutely would prefer Derrick Henry to win the Super Bowl. I'm not anti-Derrick Henry. I'm very pro-Derrick Henry. I am very anti-Ravens.
Yeah, your argument is that the anti-Ravens in you is more powerful than your level of support for Derrick Henry.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I love Derrick Henry. No, but I just don't want the Ravens to win. Derrick Henry having individual success, have all of it. But I do not want to see the Ravens climb the mountaintop. That's one of the last teams I want to see win the Super Bowl.
But I do think that's the question that we're getting down to at the end of the day is what is stronger? Is it your disdain for the Ravens and your hatred of the Ravens that you root against them, or is it your love for Derrick Henry and rooting for Derrick Henry? And I believe that when you're taking Derrick Henry and putting him on the Ravens and combining them and saying, which one are you rooting for? You're trying to see which power of will is going to win out. And so for somebody like me who covered Derrick and got to know Derrick and talked to Derrick and watched Derrick up close and personal and doesn't have the same connection to the Ravens, of course, my rooting interest for Derrick is always going to, outweigh my hatred of Baltimore because I don't really have one. But that's what I find interesting because, hey, the chat is, split relatively split on this issue on whether or not you would rather have Derrick Henry win the Super Bowl with the Ravens and have his individual success. And are you rooting for Derrick Henry's success, even if it means the Ravens also have success?
Denise here with a comment. Loved Henry, but now he's my ex. Time to move on. That's the thing. You can want your ex to be happy. You can want them to do great, but you do want to do a little bit better than they're doing, right? So if the Ravens are
Yeah.
winning, I want the Titans to be the better team. Look, I'll always Derrick Henry is my favorite Titan of all time. No, I will never appreciate anybody more than Derrick Henry. Of course, my love for Henry outweighs my hatred for the Ravens. With that being said, I don't think that it's a crime to want the Ravens to fall flat on their face like they have been doing in the postseason. Like Derrick Henry can still perform well. Derrick Henry can still ball out, but I do not want the Ravens to win anything. And I think that that's a very, like, you can have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Look, Edward says Sam will root for his ex-girl that just got with his friend. That's not what we're talking about,
You
Edward.
just got with your mortal enemy.
It's a funny comment, but to me, this is like, hey, you've got an ex that things ended amicably. There's still a whole lot of love there, and then they're in a new relationship. And to me, it's like you want to see them do well. You're like, hey, good for you. I'd rather do better for myself. Like you said, I'm always looking out for myself at the end of the day. But hey, like you still gotta like you have a good heart. You got to think, hey, good for you. That's my thought. You guys are the petty ones who are sitting there and saying, "Ugh, she's getting with somebody else. She's got a new man. I'm upset with that. I'm gonna hate on him extra." You know, you're going out of your way to talk crap about him. That's you guys. You guys are the petty ones here.
I don't think so. I think that a lot of people want to see Derrick Henry do well. Like nobody wants to see Derrick Henry get hurt. Nobody wants to see him, completely fall off a cliff and ruin his legacy, right? Like what he did for Tennessee is incredibly special, and it doesn't happen. But
I
the
love
Ravens, nobody should be pulling for the Ravens' success. Like if Derrick Henry wins a Super Bowl, okay, whatever. But that means that the Ravens won one, and Titans fans should never be. There's never a scenario where the Titans should be pulling for the Ravens.
Hey, Edward says, yes, I am hating. And I appreciate him owning it. And hey, I know, listen, I get it because I'm not a Titans fan, and you can say that I don't have that, but I think I'd put it in that same Bears perspective for me personally. I look at somebody like David Montgomery, who, by the way, does not have anywhere close to the same impact on Chicago as somebody like Derrick Henry has to Nashville. Once again, the house that Derrick built. That's what we should call the new stadium, because that doesn't get done if the Titans don't become nationally relevant in the NFL and actually become a hot ticket in the city of Nashville, which they really weren't until Derrick took
Well,
off.
I don't think that Derrick Henry had any impact on Nissan Stadium completely unraveling at the seams and costing
Well,
far too much money to repair.
sure. Yeah.
So the
Hey,
stadium probably happens either way.
that much, absolutely. But yeah, no, you get my point, though. The brand of the Tennessee Titans, so much of where it is right now is because of Derrick Henry. David Montgomery is insignificant in Chicago Bears history, and yet he was somebody who played his heart out for the Bears, played 4 tough years for the Bears, did very well, made the playoffs with the Bears, and then leaves and goes to the division rival Detroit Lions. And I was kind of sitting there watching the playoffs going, hey, go Lions. David Montgomery, if you want to go ahead and get your ring, I'm cool with it. And that is the sense, by the way, of a mature ex. When you're able to say, hey, good for you. Go get yours, right? I'm going to get mine. I'm going to worry about me. I'm not worried. I'm going to get mine in the near future. You can't get too caught up in this, man. You can't be
The Lions have been the kid at the lunch tables eating their boogers for the last 20 years, though. It's totally different than the Ravens, who've been neck and neck with the Titans and have knocked them out in some of the biggest stages in football. So that's totally different. And David Montgomery to Derrick Henry, I will not have that comparison.
Sounds like a scorned ex, man. Sounds like you're too burned.
Look, I just hate the Ravens. I love Derrick Henry.
You can't get over it. Just saying. All right. This is a fun little impromptu topic here. I enjoyed this conversation a lot. Let's pivot a little bit to our other topic that we actually had planned today, Jack, because,
yes, that was fun, though.
Yeah, it was very good. We look back in hindsight, and again, let's bring up the report that kind of sparked all of this, which is from The Athletic, talking about how Tennessee Titans general manager Ran Carthon agreed to a trade at last year's trade deadline to send Derrick Henry to the Ravens in exchange for a 4th-round pick that would have become a 3rd-round pick had Henry reached certain production levels. And based on the end of the year that he had, Jack, I'm kind of assuming that he would have gone over the threshold and this would have become a 3rd-round pick for the Titans here. Ran agreed to it. Others in the Titans hierarchy, aka ownership, let's read between the lines, was not on board. So Henry played out the season in Nashville. And we talked about how, hey, maybe there are negative football repercussions to this, but there are also positive off the field repercussions to this. Number one is just the branding and the ticket sales and the jerseys. All of this stuff from Amy Adams Strunk. But we also got a pretty special moment in week 18 at Nissan Stadium where Derrick Henry got to give an actual goodbye to Titans fans. He actually got to take the mic and show more personality than he typically does to say, thank you guys for everything. And if he gets traded on a Tuesday night in the middle of, October, November, the deadline, you don't get that. So let's just remind everybody what we got from Derrick Henry after the Titans' final game of the regular season.
Titan fans, I just want to say thank you for the greatest 8 years of my life, the ups and the downs. Y'all been there for everything, through the adversity, watching me grow as a person and a player, always supporting me. I love y'all. I love seeing the 22s in the stadium. Hopefully I was an inspiration to all the young kids and everybody in the community. Just thank y'all so much. Man, God is good. And tighten up, baby.
Nothing left to be said. Ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Henry, the King.
Epic.
Oh, I just love him so much.
Yeah, and being down in, I was in that tunnel that he runs into there, and I was standing right next to Derrick and Mike Vrabel when they hugged. And at the time, I'm sitting there, got my phone out, I'm watching it happen, and I'm thinking,
Shy City Sam has lost connection. However, there's, by the way, a big little power outage going on around the world today. Hope everybody's internet's holding up. But Derrick, that moment with Derrick Henry, I mean, truly was special. And I feel like Titans fans in a season where there wasn't a whole lot of hope, they were able to at least get some closure in that moment. But that's not necessarily, right. Maserati Mac, thanks for cutting him off, Jack. I just had to after that last discussion. He had to get cut off. But anyways, there was a level of closure there at the end, in a lost season with Derrick Henry giving that speech to the fans, running off, waving at everybody. That's the final moment that I feel like Titans fans and any franchise really wants to have when a player of the caliber of Derrick Henry exits. Now, there is a question to be asked here as I now go half screen. Was that worth it? Was the back half of the season, was that week 18 win against the Jags, was that speech after the win and the ode to the fans, was that worth it? Here we go. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have that farewell, Derrick Henry's farewell, or a third-round pick from the Ravens? Had Rand Carthon pulled that trigger, had Amy Adams Strunk signed off on it, where you could get a third-round pick in exchange for Derrick Henry in the middle of a lost season, would you rather have that, or would you rather have the farewell, the Jags win in Week 18, the stretch that the Titans had at the end of the season? Which would you rather have? We'll get to your comments in the chat. Hopefully Sam jumps back in here at some point, and I can go back to my half of the screen. But we're going to ask that question. I'll read it one more time, and I'll pin it right here. Which would you rather have? Derrick Henry's farewell from the Titans or a third-round pick from the Ravens via mid-season trade? You guys can get to those answers. I see a lot of answers already filing in the chat here. While you guys do that, I'm going to give you all a quick word about BetMGM. We got to get these checks in, people. Let's see here. As I pull up the BetMGM ad read, BetMGM new users download BetMGM. Use our bonus code A to Z Sports. You'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. I know there's nothing going on really in the sporting world, but there's still a lot of action out there to be had. And with college football season and the NFL season on the horizon, training camp starts next week. College football, we're getting closer and closer. There's future bets to take. There's Heisman bets. Who's going to win the SEC? How many wins are these teams going to have? All of these things are available. And then you're talking about NFL season-long props like receiving yards for Calvin Ridley, passing yards for Will Levis, passing touchdowns for Will Levis, all kinds of stuff available to be bet on betmgm.com. Just make sure when you sign up to use our bonus code A to Z Sports and get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. All right, Sam should be back here in any minute. His computer is restarting. We're going to get to some of the answers here really quick while Sam's gone. Was it worth it? Derrick Henry's farewell for the Titans, or would you rather have a third-round pick from the Ravens? We're going to get to the chat here. Ryskull starts us off on YouTube with 100% it was worth it. He doesn't need the third-round pick. Let's see. Hell no. Hello Lady says it was not worth it. Titans Kyle, Eric Castillo would rather have the farewell. Roger would rather have the draft pick. Dre Clifton says that last ride was worth it from Derrick Henry. Darren Lee says he wants the third-round pick. Billy says third-round pick all day long. Farewell from Denise and Rooney. Sam, we've got you back. I hit the BetMGM ad read. We're one ad read short. We'll get to it after we get these comments in the chat. But we've got a third-round pick from Danny Whitson. He'd rather have the farewell. Third-round pick. Lou Man's on the third rounder. Henry farewell. You were talking about a 50-50 split. That's what we got going on right now. Although the farewell might have taken the lead here with this run from Mario, Dylan, and Daniel. Brandon wants the pick. Let's see the pick. We've got it wasn't going to be a third. It was going to be a third. The report says that it was going to be a fourth. And if Derrick Henry hit his productivity levels, that fourth would have turned into a third. And I think we can all agree that betting on Derrick Henry is something we've learned to do over the last handful of seasons with him with the Titans. So Sam, chat's probably it's probably a 60-40 split farewell to the third-round pick. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, well, first of all, my apologies there. My bad time for my laptop to say, hey, we out of here. So we're making do, hoping the laptop resets, making by my phone. Do have something to chime in here because I'm proud of the chat for saying they would rather have the farewell. I think I personally would rather have the pick because I think you can look at it objectively and say that this pick is better for the longevity of the franchise, which is ultimately should be what you're rooting for as a fan. And a Derrick Henry goodbye is rather futile and insignificant at the end of the day. Like, we're not going to look back at, you should always root for like good football process, and not trading Derrick Henry to have this goodbye and like have him finish his tenure with the Titans is poor football process at the end of the day. In a way that you should be able to look at it and say, this is not what's best for the team. However, I do believe Titans fans should want the farewell. And this comes back to my level of fandom, Jack, where it's like, I don't necessarily care as much as a Titans fan would about this super emotional goodbye, farewell, thank you, King Henry type of moment. And so I can look at it and say, yeah, you need the pick. But if you're a Titans fan out there, that was important, I think, for the culture and for the way that you view Derrick Henry looking back 20 years from now, because 2023 had been an ugly, ugly season for him. The offensive line was just not good. Yeah, his numbers were okay. He went over 1,000 yards, and had some decent production, but I don't really remember a moment in the 2023 season that you're like, oh, the King is doing his thing. That last game against Jacksonville was that moment where it felt like Derrick was running free all the time. And it's nice to have a memory of Derrick Henry and your lasting memory of Derrick Henry being vintage Derrick Henry, and to have a real goodbye, have all of these things. That to me mattered. And so I think it should matter to Titans fans. And so while I can say it's the draft pick, I think if you're a fan out there, you should be glad that you got what you got, because not every fan base and not every player, not every relationship ends that way.
No, you're right. And it's a moment that we'll remember forever. Kane puts it in a good spot. You'd rather have a moment in time I'll remember forever than a player who is a gamble in the draft, especially a day 2 draft pick. So I'm with you. Like, football process is everything. And my opinion is that I think the Titans could have benefited from moving on from Derrick Henry for a third-round pick, because that helps the Titans in the future. It never felt like Derrick Henry was going to return after this season. You knew that halfway through. I mean, he was getting pummeled back there. It was hard to watch Derrick Henry at times just because of how bad that offensive line was in front of him. So to me, I say this having that special moment, that send-off, the last ride against Jacksonville that knocked him out of the playoff. I have that, which maybe makes my answer a little bit easier. And in the moment, I would have agreed with you. I would have said, yes, keep Derrick Henry. We need to see this last ride. I want closure to my favorite player of all time. leaving this franchise. I want him to know that it's the end, right? When you trade him, that player never really knows if it's his last game or not. But Derrick Henry at the end of the season knew that that would be his last game in Tennessee. You saw the speech, obviously. With that being said, though, third-round picks can change your franchise, and they have changed the Titans franchise over the last few years. Just look at what Rand Carthon has done with his third and fourth-round picks over the last couple of years. He used one to move up and go get Will Levis at the top of the second round. Drafted Tajay Spears, used a third to trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Drafted Cedric Gray this year. Mike Herndon, by the way, the king, always right. But that's a substantial crop of players right there. And who knows what he would have done with a third-round pick. And even though that Baltimore was deep in the third round, there were still 3 players that I had my eyes on for the Titans that I think would have absolutely been impact guys had the Titans had that extra pick and were able to go grab one. I'm talking about safety Cameron Kitchens from Miami. The Titans needed a safety, needed a ball hawk safety. This dude has 11 picks in his last 2 seasons at Miami. Troy Franklin was still on the board, the wide receiver from Oregon, who put up nearly 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns last season. And I know that the Titans drafted Cedric Gray from UNC, but Peyton Wilson from down the road at NC State was on the board. Yeah. Who knows whether they had him higher than
and I really liked Peyton Wilson as an inside linebacker. Like, really, the only thing that was a question about Peyton Wilson was the injury concern. But just like a player is a guy who you would have had no doubts adding to your defense as a starting inside linebacker, for sure.
And who knows if one of those 3 players could have been a cornerstone for your franchise moving forward and a cheap fix at a position of need. So those, we're going to have to wait a few years to see how these things play out. If Kitchens, Franklin, or Wilson end up panning out to be, multi-year starters, potentially even Pro Bowlers. But just with the way the season was playing out last year, in hindsight, I think it would have been better to move on from Henry and grab that third-round pick and kind of help build towards your future.
Well, Jack, I guess the other question that we have to ask here is, like, realistically, what do the Titans do with this pick? Should they have this pick? Because you can look back at this draft and find any number of players that were successful after this third round slot that the Titans could have gotten and said, oh, well, had you not done this thing with Derrick Henry, had you traded Derrick Henry, you can get this guy. But where do we think the Titans go in the third round? You go with J.C. Latham. You go with T'Vondre Sweat. So you've added to the trenches. I mean, do they go wide receiver? Do they go at inside linebacker? Like, what is the next need that we think they fill if they are in the third round?
I mean, they drafted a safety out of Miami later, James Williams, right? Who's probably going to translate to a linebacker in the NFL. But I mean, I think that Cameron Kitchens was probably, somewhere on their board. It's a position of need. A hard-nosed player, an established guy in Miami, and the Rams ended up grabbing him right after the Ravens picked an interior defensive lineman that I'd never heard of. But, inside linebacker, I mean, that's where they went like 10 or 12 picks later.
Darren Lee says secondary, which, they go with Jarvis Brownlee with their next pick. So they did go and, improve their secondary. But the other option here, too, is like maybe an edge rusher because, this pick that the Ravens made is Adisa Isaac, who is somebody who I think was mocked to the Titans. And, the Titans did have a lot of interest in Adisa Isaac. And so very athletic edge rusher. We know they kind of needed some depth on the edge, and we're kind of looking at that. It didn't end up falling into their lap like they might have thought in the draft. But if you're at number 93, if you do have that Ravens pick, maybe you go grab an edge rusher. So, Bork thinks it's a right tackle. I don't know. Was what Blake Freeland, was he off the board at that point already? Like, I mean, there was a couple good right tackles.
Player escapes my memory. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can find right tackles later in the draft. I mean, hell, Trey Smith is a great example of that with the Kansas City Chiefs. A little Vol pandering I'm doing here this morning on this happy Friday.
Look at you. Little Vol pandering.
But look, it's going to be a situation where we're going to have to look down the road in 3-4 years and really evaluate whether or not the Titans did this thing right. Like if these players at positions of need don't end up panning out, or maybe, but the worst thing that would happen would be Peyton Wilson going on to have a fantastic career and Cedric Gray never really producing much, right? Never really panning out, because that's a situation where if they were set on an inside linebacker and they settled for Cedric Gray after Wilson was off the board, that could really change things in how you view this decision by the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately this question comes down to, like, what you value to me. And it's why I don't necessarily feel okay taking a really firm view one way or another. Like for me, it's cut and dry. You do the football move, you trade Derrick Henry. It's foolish to do anything else. And I can sit here and objectively criticize the Titans for that. But if you're a Titans fan who's sitting back and even now we watch that video back, Jack, like it's like chills in a way. It's like the end of an era. It kind of cuts your heart a little bit deep. And, at least you have that fond memory over, like, I still feel weirdly incomplete with how Kevin Byard ended his tenure with the Titans.
Right.
Kevin Byard gets traded in what was a surprise move because it was not right up to the deadline. It was a little bit before the deadline that it just kind of happened. And we kind of come back in the locker room and Terrell Edmonds is all of a sudden in Kevin Byard's locker. And you're just kind of like, that's been KB's locker for years and years and years. And this person who was a pillar of this defense, KB was somebody that every person in the media would go up to and rely on to answer the hard-hitting questions. And he always stood up there and he faced it. And then it's like, oh, just gone. Nobody got to say goodbye to Kevin. You shoot him a text and say, hey, good luck. Like that was the most I heard of people saying goodbye to Kevin Byard. Mm-hmm. Nobody got to say goodbye. It didn't end like ceremoniously. And Derrick Henry is in another level even from Kevin Byard, where Derrick Henry is going to be in Canton. And he's going to be in Canton as a Tennessee Titan. And so I think it was good to actually have a bow on the relationship.
Yeah, and the thing with Byard, too, and JR brings it up, Kevin Byard was homegrown, bleeding two-tone blue. He's exactly right. Mayor of Murfreesboro, MTSU legend, MTSU Hall of Famer, by the way. But the thing with Kevin Byard was he was a culture curator, right? He was perfect for that locker room. He was, like you said, the guy that everybody wanted to hear from after a win or a loss. But when the Titans traded Kevin Byard, it was clear that he wasn't the same Byard that we used to know, right? Like his production had slipped a little bit. Derrick Henry is still a top flight running back, in my opinion. I think he's absolutely within the top 5 at his position. It's just the offensive line wasn't there to help him get through it these last couple of seasons. Yeah. And his production suffered from it. But Derrick Henry is still probably going to be a fantastic player for Baltimore, which stings a little bit because had he stuck around, you feel like you could have maybe made something happen, but it's just not the direction this new staff wanted to go in. We're talking about an aging running back.
It's a great spot for Derrick. I mean, like you really can't think of a better fit for him than that Baltimore offense where you cannot just sit there and like in the Titans offense.
He's not the main attraction, right?
Well, yeah, in the Titans offense, Derrick Henry ran onto the field and everybody saw 22 coming out and said, it's probably a run play and let's stop it. And you can't really do that because if you try and, stop the run and you're only looking at 22 in Baltimore, you're going to get burned by the quarterback and Lamar's going to make you pay. And so it's going to be that like hesitancy of wanting to spy Lamar and wanting to know like that is what you need to give Derrick Henry a head of steam, which is why I think he might have a very big year should he be able to stay healthy with the Ravens, which, hey, I know that'll hurt. But
MB says that's why you don't give them away for rubbish, man. A 3rd-round pick in today's game, especially with the way the Titans have used those picks in recent years, is not rubbish, man. I mean, you're getting something back for a player that is gone. So that's why this conversation has multiple layers to it.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a 6th, right? If it was a 5th, then you can sit there and be like, even a 4th, I can see you being like, that's not enough. How often do 4th-round picks hurt? But when you're talking about a top 100 selection, you are going to get a player that's definitely going to make your roster and definitely going to get some playing time, somebody who has a lot of upside. And so, once you get into that 3rd-round pick, 2nd-round pick, sort of range, these trades very much become worth it. I just don't believe, and the other thing I would disagree with here about this conversation, I don't think we can judge this based on hindsight. And that's what I would encourage everybody in
which is difficult because you have the Derrick Henry farewell speech, right? You already have that.
Yeah, super difficult. But let's not look back at this and say, oh, Peyton Wilson's awesome, or Adisa Isaac is a 12-sack player, and now we're mad because he could have been a Titan had we just traded Derrick Henry. Like, if you wanted and you value the Derrick Henry speech and the farewell, I respect it. Stand on it, man. Stand on it. And I don't necessarily believe hindsight justifies process, process justifies process. And we have to be able to correctly assess and judge an organization's process and their decision making in real time.
And with a fire comment here, do you risk losing the fan base right before you build a new stadium? You already traded one of your best players in franchise history away a couple of years prior. You traded Byard away. You trade Henry away. Does that turn people against you? I think it's a legitimate question that Ann's asking.
Well, it's a legitimate factor too. I mean, Derrick Henry gets traded. You're talking about like a very weird end to even like the Mike Vrabel tenure, where things are like ugly and you don't have any of your good players anymore, and you don't really feel like there's much direction. There's not a ton of buy-in. And the way that the Titans did this, while they gave up the draft capital, you were able to put a feel-good bow on the Derrick Henry story. You were able to segue Mike Vrabel out, bring in Brian Callahan, while your fan base was still relatively engaged in what was happening, and start to build some positive momentum towards the future and towards that new stadium and towards the new era of Titans football that Amy and Ran and now Callie are all building. So I don't know if you do that as much. Like, you trade Derrick Henry mid-season, there might be a lot of Titans fans that go, yeah, I'm checked out. I'm not worried about it. You keep him through the offseason, people want to know, hey, what are the Titans going to do next? Who's that new head coach going to be? Is Derrick Henry going to be part of the team? And you give yourself a longer leash to win people back for what's to come.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't really have a problem whether you're on one side of this fence or the other. I think that there's plenty of reasons to have appreciated the farewell and have prioritized that over a potential third-round pick that might not pan out. On the other hand, in hindsight, which is sadly where I have to judge this, and it's kind of tough to do it, the third-round pick sounds really nice. Whether you draft a player or you trade it for a player, you can really do some damage with a third-round pick in your arsenal, as we've seen them do with L'Jarius Sneed, as we've seen them do with Will Levis, trading for an established corner.
Trading now, like, it goes both ways, right? Because you trade Derrick Henry for a fourth or a third, and you might be like, oh, that's rubbish. But, like, I mean, what did Keenan Allen go for? A fourth? Like, L'Jarius Sneed goes for a third and a new contract. You know what? Players are getting moved for third, fourth, fifth, sixth round picks all the time. If you've got excess picks, you give yourself opportunity to go and acquire more proven talent. And then it's not Derrick Henry for rubbish. It's Derrick Henry for the pick that you need to get a different player.
Mm-hmm. So, no, I totally agree.
All right, well, let's get into some super chats. Before we do it, got to catch up on our sponsors here, because I pieced out for a little bit. Unreliable right here. My computer unreliable. I'll tell you who is reliable, and that's Farm Bureau Health Plans. FBHP.com for better rates, better coverage, and better service. Learn more about a plan for you at FBHP.com/ATOZ. They've been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years, and a lot has changed in Tennessee over the years. But again, it's all about reliability. It's all about staying the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has stayed the same because they value personal relationships when it comes to good health and good service, and you can rely on them for dental, health, and vision. So better rates, better coverage, better service. FBHP.com/ATOZ. That's FBHP.com/ATOZ. Want to tell everybody about our friends at Holiday World as well. It's Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Got some, there you go. There's Holiday World. You can catch the last wind of summer with the best savings online at holidayworld.com. They've got a great variety at Holiday World. Over 40 rides and slides with something for everyone in the family, award-winning roller coasters, and a water park. They have Holidays in the Skies drone show now with over 500 drones going this summer. It's holidayworld.com. That's where you go, and where they always have great value. Free soft drinks, parking, free sunscreen. Holiday World. That's holidayworld.com. Make them a part of your summer. Last wind of summer at Holiday World. Jack, super chats. Got a couple of them we got to get to here. Again, King VZ came in and said, lock in, like the show. You guys got to do that for us. Need more likes on the show. Boost those likes here this morning on a Friday morning. Isaac goes back to our conversation earlier with Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. He says he wants Derrick Henry to have a great season, but can never root for the Ravens. Too much bad blood and memories.
I agree.
Yeah, this is in line with your thinking as well. Yeah,
of course. No, 100%. Yeah, look, Derrick Henry, go rush for 1,510 touchdowns. Be my guest. But the Ravens, I don't want them to win a single playoff game. I want them to miss the playoffs. If Derrick Henry can have a great season and the Ravens stink, that is the perfect scenario for me.
Darren says picking a quote moment or a moving piece on the game board for real. These decisions are the difference between being a bad team and a good one.
Look at that. That's some heat right there.
It is some heat. That is facts at the end of the day. I mean, good organizations in the sport find a way to maximize value. And you might sit there and scratch your eyebrow and go, why are the Titans trading Derrick Henry? And then you look 5 years down the line at what they did with the 3rd round pick they got in that trade and realize that, there's levels to it. Being able to separate sentimental value can make for a much better football process and football hierarchy. And my hope, like I get it from Amy Adams Strunk perspective. You were in a unique scenario in 2023. My hope is that now with Rand Carthon as your president, as the guy calling the shots, as he's built this front office around him, as you have a very clear hierarchy of decision-making, no more meddling from other people within the Titans, organization. Let's let Rand cook and let him do his job.
And this isn't the 1990s anymore, man. Like, players bounce around in today's league. Like it's a rare scenario when you have one player stick with one team's entire career. So there was always probably going to be an end to the Derrick Henry tenure in Tennessee, while you're going to have to watch him play somewhere else. I mean, it happened with Eddie George, although he only played like one game with the Cowboys. It's happened with Derek Mason, Steve McNair. Some of these Titans legends have moved on, played for other teams. Like, it's just the way of the world.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't affect their legacy much. Like, I'll remind you, Dez Bryant played for the Baltimore Ravens. Bet you forgot he did that. You think of Dez Bryant as a Dallas Cowboy still. There's a lot of examples of players that had great careers with one team, finished with a different team, and you still look back on them fondly. You brought up like Matt Forte as a comparison for Derrick Henry and like what Matt Forte was to Bears fans. Well, Matt Forte played the end of his career with the Jets, and nobody remembers Matt Forte the Jet. They remember Matt Forte the Bear. People, regardless of what happens, are not going to remember Derrick Henry, the Baltimore Raven. It will always be King Henry of Music City and, the king of Tennessee Titans football. Great point.
CJ2K at Arizona. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who thinks about Cardinals Chris Johnson? Nobody. Andre with a great point here. That is also a factor. If you trade Henry, you probably lose to the Dolphins and the Jags. You pick top 4 and have that third we didn't. It could have completely changed the draft in future pieces. It's not just the 3rd round pick you potentially get from Baltimore. It is, wins and losses. That Jacksonville game, you won because of how dominant Derrick Henry was in that game. You might still beat Miami because so much of that was a late run by the Titans that Tajay Spears kind of carried them on. But one more loss bumps you up in the draft order. Maybe that's, you're drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Who knows what the situation is that plays out, but it definitely could have impacted the Titans draft in more ways than just a 3rd round pick.
That's right. And without knowing how these draft picks are going to pan out, it's tough to say whether or not it was worth it. We don't know if Malik Neighbors is going to be good. It's hard to imagine he will in New York with the quarterback situation. And same with the left tackle. I have no idea why. Joe Alt. Like, what if Joe Alt flames out and actually, the Titans with Latham have the better left tackle in this draft? So it could all work out just fine. Sometimes these situations are okay where you save yourself from drafting a guy that you really like, although he might not be the player that you hoped he would.
Yeah. All right, Jack, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's get to Ain't That Good News. And it's, a little bit of a special edition because it is good gravy, good news. But here we go. Good news time here on a Friday morning. All right, it's Ain't That Good News, and it is Good Gravy, Good News. That's right. Good Gravy is the new family-friendly roller coaster over at Holiday World. Good Gravy is a first like no other in the world of roller coasters, themed after a Thanksgiving dinner. So go check it out. Get tickets before the summer ends at holidayworld.com. Jack, need everybody doing good news in the chat. So drop your good news. Let us know how you're feeling today on this Friday. Do you have something at the top of your head?
Yeah, I do, Sam. Let me get to Rye School real quick because he jumped in quick. Just secured a new job ahead of department layoffs with a 12% increase. That's chess, not checkers, my friends. Ooh. Congratulations, Rye School. You finessed them. Okay, but while good news comments are rolling in, I'll go ahead and get to mine. Sam, have you ever been to a hot pot restaurant? I've never been. It's a Japanese situation where you kind of dip the meat into the hot pot, cooks it a little bit, and you I've never been.
Just initial reaction sounds fantastic though.
So that's what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to a place over on West End with some of my buddies, and we're going to do a little hot pot action. I didn't get the pre-order of EA College Football 25. So I downloaded that last night at 11 p.m. I was up a little late last night. Hopefully, if the servers come back, I'm going to have my hot pot meal. I'm going to come back home and just simmer in it and play a little EA College Football 25.
By what day is Vandy a national powerhouse with Jack
man.
Gentry calling the shots?
I'd say by the end of the weekend, Vanderbilt's back to where they should be at the top of the college football universe.
Okay.
So, but me and my friends have a little online dynasty. We got 16 people in this thing, and God knows if we'll ever finish it. But we're all like teams that are 86 and below overall. I've got Arizona, so I'm running things with Fafita and McMillan over there, so it'll be fun, hopefully, if I can get some wins. But got to knock the rust off a little bit.
Yeah, I've been seeing. I still shade on the college football game for not being available to anybody without a next gen console, but it's looked great. I've enjoyed watching the streams of everybody, and Steven is backing you here. He says Hot Pot is amazing.
Okay, good, Steven.
So yeah, we looking like it's going to be all good there. Trying to look for other good news. Let's see what we got here. We got Ann got married on North Avenue Beach in Chicago on Wednesday.
Congrats, Ann.
Big congrats. And what a spot to get married. North Ave Beach is awesome. Maybe I'll try and get up there while I'm here because I'm here for like 5 days or so.
You got to see the bean.
Getting a tattoo cover up tomorrow, getting the tattoos fixed. I need to get back in the tattoo parlor. I need to get a couple more tattoos, I think. I got a couple things brewing in my head. So shout out to Tone. That's good news there. Stephen King says going to a bachelor party this weekend, which is always good news, always a good time. Maserati Max says
you're not going to read Schlamskied. You're not going to read Schlamskied. That's the best word I've seen in the chat all day.
And I had to get to Maserati Mac talking bad. He says, good news. I don't have to hear Sam talk such crap again like he did today. Need the old Sam back. Hey, I don't know.
Titans Ravens, man.
What is the old Sam? I need to know, what is the old Sam? I think this might just be off-season Sam. This is off-season Sam.
Maybe it's just Shy City Sam.
That's a little Shy City, but this has been chat's been having some hostility towards me for a little bit now. So I think this is potentially a bigger issue. We need to get to training camp next week and figure it out. Which is Chris Frazier's good news that training camp starts next week. King VZ with $2 super chat says he's back in Tennessee. The King's about to be at the Titans games this year is what it sounds like. So looking forward to seeing King VZ at the Titans games, hopefully. Let's see what we got. We got other people saying that they're going to crash the wedding. We've got good news. Frazier had a Jerry Rice song written up. I don't know. I'm not seeing any other good news. My good news, Titans Cow. Good news, it's his wife and his anniversary. Happy anniversary to Titans Cow.
Happy anniversary.
One of our longtime, viewers, everyday listeners here. My good news is right there. There it is. Shy City Sam. I'm back in Chicago. I'm back in the Shy, and I'm going to, I was with family yesterday, going to spend some time with family today. Later tonight, gonna head to one of my buddies' lake house over in somewhere in rural Illinois here. Gonna do a nice little lake house weekend, and then back to Nashville on Tuesday. I will be back in Nashville on Tuesday, and on Tuesday when I get back, I'm basically going right into the thick of it because training camp is there. So I'm enjoying my last little piece, my recovery, my recuperation here, trying to see if I can get back to the old Sam, as the chat says, before I get in for training camp.
You're not hitting guaranteed rate?
No, I'm staying as far away as possible. I actually would go, but I think they're out of town this weekend. And I'm also going to the lake this weekend, so it just wasn't going to work out. Maybe I'm going to try and get back when I come for the Caleb Williams debut, Titans Bears week 1. Maybe I'll try and get to the rate for one game then, because, hey,
good for you. I'm a big believer that the happiest moment in the entire world is just walking into a baseball stadium, smelling the grass, smelling the popcorn. It's an instant mood lifter.
Yeah.
Even if you're a White Sox fan.
Well, yeah, it's, you have fun and then just pretend like the baseball isn't happening in front of you, or like you go into the game and just pretend like the team is like 10 games over 500. And then you win, and it makes everything matter a little bit more. Yeah. Hey, listen, I was out of pocket for a little bit. I'm back in the pocket now. I'm still trying to find my pocket presence. All right, chat. That's where we're at. I was out of pocket. I'm back in the pocket trying to figure out my pocket presence. I'm a little, I don't know, little antsy out here. I got quick feet, quick trigger, and I'm not letting plays develop. So be patient with me as we settle back into training camp and I get back in the pocket. We're going to be all right. So
It's pocket watch time on A to Z Sports. Lucas Burks is totally right. Sam, just come on over to the good side, man. Be a Braves fan.
Dude, I wish I could. I really wish I could just like jump ship like that and do that, especially with baseball. It's been the worst year of Chicago sports in the history of Chicago sports, and but like mathematically has legitimately been the worst year. But we all know it just doesn't work like that, and it wouldn't hit the same. So got to tough it out.
Chicago sports being mentioned in Ain't That Good News is
no, that was an Ain't That Bad News. That was a ain't good news is what that was right there. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Like Jack said, like I said at the top of the show, training camp is next week. So you got to make sure you're dialed into A to Z Sports. We've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, articles, videos coming out on all your favorite Titans players with all of the news stories you need to know as training camp unfolds. So as I look for my pocket presence, as I try and dial it back in here, make sure you guys dial it in to A to Z, and a podcast is out that you need to listen to, right?
Tighten Up Podcast with Mickey Ryan. Check it out this weekend.
There you have it. All right, guys. Peace out. We'll see you later. We'll see you Monday.